So you've been contemplating about starting weighted calisthenics, figuring out how to train like the best of the best, so you too can increase not only your strength, but simultaneously build muscle. Because we can't deny the fact that some of the greatest physiques within the calisthenics realm came from weighted calisthenics athletes. So in this video, I'm going to reveal the 5-step method, so then that way you have everything you need to know about weighted calisthenics. So let me stop yapping and let's get right onto this video. So if you recently stumbled upon my page, you may be wondering, who exactly is this guy? What does this guy have to say in order for me to know everything about weighted calisthenics? Which is true, okay, I cannot lie. I'm still a student, but however, this student of the game will put you on a couple useful points to help excel your weighted calisthenics journey, such as learning how to get a strong weighted dip with over 200 pounds for multiple repetitions, learning how to get a strong weighted pull up or chin up with 160 pounds with multiple repetitions. And without glazing myself too much, I just wanted to share my feats of strength to really highlight how these are very achievable for people like you. And if you're OG to the channel, then you already know the game that I'm about to drop is going to be something that you're definitely going to want to hear, as this may be the biggest video I've created centered around weighted calisthenics, because the methods that I'm about to show you from my 6-year journey will be pivotal to not only making consistent progress, but will save you perhaps months, years of wasted training efforts. The first step you need to take is to understand whether or not you're even cut out for this style of training, because weighted calisthenics is not easy. You need to make sure that you have the strength needed to transition to weighted calisthenics. This includes getting really strong at your pulls, whether it's the pronated grip, neutral grip, or supinated grip. I strongly urge you to reach a point of easily completing at least 8 reps for 3 to 4 sets. Anything more is great, but anything less, well, let's just say it's going to be very difficult to make measurable progress. Then as for the dips, you need to get at least 10 reps for 3 to 4 sets. Now, if you're thinking I'm lowballing the repetitions, I don't blame you, because like I said, these are just my minimum standards before even thinking about transitioning to weighted calisthenics. Now that you have the strength needed to transition, let's talk about the methods that's gonna help you increase your strength within weighted calisthenics. That is by identifying and choosing your primary movements, meaning one primary pulling compound movement and one primary pushing compound movement. Listen very closely. If you're doing anything more than the numbers I just gave you, then that is not going to be your primary mover. Otherwise, it goes against the whole principle of training for specificity. And if implemented correctly, this will allow a program that's designed around gains and goals that is efficient, focused, and effective. And if one doesn't follow strength specificity correctly, one runs the risk of wasting their time and energy, resulting in not reaching their desired goals in a timely manner. So in my case, I trained the weighted chin-ups as my primary pulling movement, and then the weighted dips as my primary pushing movement. So in terms of your dynamic or rep-based training, the sole focus of programming will be centered around those 2 primary movers. Everything else will be assessed and carefully picked in order to help increase those primary movements, whether it's adding more volume to the associated muscle group or joints, getting a deeper understanding of the overall exercise mechanics. This is all going to help improve my weighted chin-ups or dips. So now that we've chosen our 2 primary movers, our goals are now identified, and now it's time to flesh out a little bit more information in the efforts of learning how to achieve those goals in a more efficient manner, which actually leads on to my next method that help break down my training in a very simple and concise manner. That is by identifying your accessory movements that will help supplement your primary movements. Remember how I said, in order to follow the principle of strength specificity, we need to do everything after the weighted chin-ups and weighted dips in our efforts to increase those step movements. So your accessories can be broken down within 2 categories: secondary compound movements and isolation-based movements. So let's take the weighted chin-ups in this specific scenario, which is our primary mover. That literally leaves us with 2 more exercises that we can allocate towards increasing our primary mover. This can be a horizontal row, such as the inverted rows, because it's training the same muscle groups as the chin-ups, but in a horizontal plane. And in this case, this will be our secondary compound movement. Then can be a bicep isolation exercise, such as ring curls, which directly targets the biceps, similar to that within the chin-ups, as well as being specific in the joints and mechanics of the exercise by engaging in elbow flexion. And if you recall what I said about strength specificity, it entails the ability to pick and choose exercises that mimics your primary mover, whether it's the same targeted muscle groups, joints, or just getting a better understanding of the exercise mechanics. So that's the weighted chin-ups at least. Now, obviously I didn't talk about how to go about picking and choosing for the weighted dips. So I'm actually gonna give you a test. I'm gonna let you fill out what 2 accessory movements will be the most applicable to the weighted dips. So let me know in the comments. I'm really trying to see if y'all are paying attention or if y'all just one ear out the other. So now that we understood the first 3 methods to help increase one's weighted calisthenics strength, I will say that everything we've covered thus far is basic knowledge. This is just getting your exercise selection and structure in order. And we'll just now be getting into the real programming part of the video, which actually leads on to the next method, learning how to strengthen the sticking points. Meaning, when training the weighted dips, for example, there are points to the exercise where it becomes disproportionately harder. It's often the point where one fails to complete the rep. In this case of the dips, it's the bottom portion of the movement, as there's little to no movement, which increases the exercise's difficulty. So theoretically speaking, right, if one intentionally makes a decision to implement these technique-based training, which will strengthen their sticking points, and in return, their overall ability to execute the dip increases at a more efficient rate, because now we're establishing a better understanding of the exercise mechanics, which can be done through pause rep training, such as pausing at the bottom of the dip to increase time under tension, which will increase strength adaptations to press back up with maximal force. Or one can utilize negatives to increase the amount of stress that's being placed on not only the muscle, but on a neural level to increase one's neuromuscular control. Ever occurred to you how some of the best elite athletes train with such heavy weights, but then when they execute the movement, they seem to perform with high level of control, even though you clearly see that they're giving it their all, meaning 100% intensity? That's because technique-based training such as negatives or pause reps will allow the body to understand how to train with heavier loads without the shock of additional stress to ruin the set. And specifically to eccentric based training, studies prove that our muscles are up to 25% stronger on the lowering portion of the movement. And that covers the sticking point section. So now that we understood the required strength to transition to weighted calisthenics and cover the importance of learning when and how to train our accessory work to supplement our primary movers, as well as gaining a deeper understanding of training those primary movers by specifically improving our sticking points, the method that will bring everything full circle to truly optimize one's training and recovery is to implement this very important concept called strength periodization. Without this, well, no matter how well structured your routine is, how well designed your program is, all of your efforts will be meaningless, as this is the fuel to your engine. And as we all know, without fuel, you will not go anywhere near to those goals that you want to achieve. So let's start off by explaining what strength periodization is. It's the pre-planning method that involves adjusting variables such as the intensity, volume, and exercise specificity to improve one's strength performance and prevent overtraining over the course of a training cycle, which leads on to the first part of learning how to periodize our training. That is by actually identifying your mesocycle, which consists of a minimum of 4 weeks and typically a maximum of 10 to 12 weeks. Now, I personally stick to a range of 6 to 8 weeks because of the variables that I need to manage and monitor, such as the intensity, the volume, the exercises that I'm doing. And just want to point out that I've came to a realization that 6 to 8 weeks, based off the last year and a half of me implementing this strategy, works the best for me to optimize my training and also adequately recover. So you need to identify what is your ideal mesocycle, as this will take experimentation and everybody recovers differently and everybody can sustain different amount of stress within a given period of time. Okay, so now that we know how many weeks we'll be training per mesocycle, which will help set clear objectives and milestones to reach and obtain, we will now need to identify how will we be implementing progressive overload to our training. How exactly are we going to be increasing our strength? Well, luckily for you, I've narrowed it down to 3 options. What I personally do is I vary my sets, reps, and loads, meaning depending on where I'm at during my mesocycle, I will be adjusting these 3 variables: sets, reps, and loads. This is because I won't be training to failure every single session. Rather, I'll incrementally up the intensity as the training weeks progress. For example, my current 3 rep max on the weighted chin-ups is 160 pounds, for 3 reps, meaning it's 100% intensity, max effort. And because it's max effort, my body will not be able to train with this load multiple times per week, let alone multiple times within the same given session. Otherwise, my body will accumulate a lot of fatigue, resulting in not giving myself even the chance to recover properly, and thus leads to suboptimal performance and a temporary dip in strength, which in most cases, a dip in strength is just your body telling you, hey, we need to chill out on all this high intensity training and give the body the chance to recover, which all ties back to learning how to periodize your training in order to optimize your strength and recovery. You see how it's coming all together? But what does this information even mean? Simply put, whenever I start a new mesocycle or training block, I have the intention to hit a new PR. And PRs can come in many different sizes and shapes. And for the form of keeping everything consistent, we'll say a PR is just a new higher load. So the first week I trained with a working load of 60% from my 3 rep max. So 60% of 160 pounds is about 96 pounds, indicating that this will be my working load for the first week of that given session. And what I usually do every week after that for that specific session is I increase the intensity by 10%, all the way to, let's say, week number 5. Then I perhaps start to increase it by just 2.5 to 5%, depending on how I perceive the loads were the previous session, aka RPE. This is for the purpose of managing my mesocycle intensity, for the purpose of maximizing strength, improving performance, and what? Preventing overtraining. Now, if you've noticed, I've only talked about how to vary and manage your intensities. I haven't even got into how you can manage the volume, the number of sets and reps, or even the ability to manage those exercise specificity movements, such as utilizing technique-based training to increase your sticking points. But as for the purpose of that, I wanted to have you gain a deep understanding of how to periodize your training with one variable, to grasp the importance of how this principle of periodizing your training is so important in order to make consistent and measurable progress. So now that we briefly discussed what our ideal mesocycle is, learning how to implement progressive overload by adjusting the loads through incremental intensity-based training, we can now move forward to the set and rep progression scheme. Now, for the sake of this video, I can't turn this into a whole podcast where I dive deep into like every single set and rep scheme out there or scenario that's apparent. So instead, I'll just lay down the basic groundwork. In order to improve your weighted calisthenics strength, training each primary movement between 1 to 3 times per week should be the foundation. 1 being the minimum, 3 being the maximum. Then depending on your training frequency, you can decide to train with a plethora of rep ranges. I'll provide the ranges that I normally stick to, which is around 3 to 10 reps. More specifically, my first weighted calisthenics day, which consists of the chin-ups and dips, will be strength biased, where I train within the 3 to 5 rep ranges. Then my second weighted calisthenics day within that same week also consists of the chin-ups and dips, will be hypertrophy biased, where I train within the 8 to 10 rep ranges. So I just gave it a sauce that I personally train my weighted calisthenic movements, aka the primary movers, 2 times per week. And each session has its own classified category of the rep ranges that I'll be training within. However, this doesn't necessarily provide what one's sets and reps will look like on a more microscopic level, meaning how are those sets really looking like? What loads are you training with in each set? What rep ranges are you using within each set? And that's because over the last 6 years in my training, I've came to a realization that there are really 2 methods that one needs to utilize for the set and rep progression scheme at a granular level. The first one being the straight set method, which is more suitable for novice or beginner lifters. Meaning, if we go back to the example of my first mesocycle week, where I'm training 60% away from my 3 to 5 rep max, this will put me about 96 pounds for me to train for every single set. Point is, each set that you have, you want to train with the same load. And you can utilize set and rep schemes such as 3x3, 4x4, or 5x5, or my personally favorite, utilizing all 3, meaning you're doing 3 to 5 sets by 5 repetitions. This is something that I actually promote the most upon this channel, as this is something that I've done myself. I've coached dozens of folks and they've seen a lot of results. I've had people who just come up to my comments and be like, yo, this set method really helped get my dips from this point to this point, right? Now, if you want to know more information about how to implement this particular routine, then be sure to watch my video where I go in detail on how you can increase your weighted pull-ups. And I'm sure you're going to learn a couple things or two. So this is all specific to the straight set method, which is suitable for lifters who are novice or beginners. The second method that I actually currently run is going to be the top and back offset method, which is more suitable for who? Experienced lifters, where the top set is going to be the heaviest set of that specific session, and the back offset is going to be a reduction in load of 10 to 20% from the top set. So let me reiterate this. The top set is only one set. The top set is going to be the heaviest set of that particular session. Hence why I say top sets and not top sets. So let me make a practical example so you don't get the two twisted, okay? If we take my weighted chin up example, at 100% intensity, my top set will be 160 pounds for 3 reps. Then for my back offsets, if I reduce the loads by 20%, I will not be training with 130 pounds with my back offsets. And I program 5 reps for my back offsets just to accumulate more volume, which means that I'm doing more repetitions compared to my top set. And here's where the fun comes into play. You can dedicate your back offsets by training the technique-based methods, such as implementing pause reps to just help strengthen that sticking point, especially during those lighter to moderate intensity weeks where you have the leeway to kind of make things more difficult, getting more out of less loads. And honestly, the same rule could be applied to my beginner or novice folks within the straight set method. You can still do, the same set scheme that's specific to that video if you didn't watch it yet. But all you got to do is just implement pauses, right? Instead of just doing regular tempo. There's honestly a lot of variabilities and scenarios that can really occur to help improve one's specific programming. And that's the beauty of programming, right? You can change literally whatever it is that you want to help succeed, whether it's like a specific thing within that week or if it's at a macro level. You literally have control of all of those variables. But most importantly, if you're accurately tracking your sessions, your ability to pre-plan and monitor everything will become that much better, which is exactly what I've been doing in order to make consistent but measurable progress. Now, if you're struggling to implement this information because it's perhaps new to you, or you've been doing this for a while, you already know this information, but you're struggling to optimize your routine and you're tired of just running in a circle by facing countless plateaus, then be sure to book a free consultation call with me where you'll be able to talk about your current training routine, what goals you have, and I'll be able to identify the areas that needs to be improved and talk about the next best steps that you need to take in order to help achieve those goals. So if you're interested, link will be in the description or check the main comments, because who doesn't want to get a strong weighted dip? Who doesn't want to excel at weighted calisthenics? Who doesn't want to build muscle and strength at the same time? Because it's definitely not me. But hey, what do I know? If you want to see more content like this, be sure to follow me, man. I'm the Tough Fitness Scout shit. No cap.
Cobra trains. He's up next. Make sure y'all subscribe to him. He's number one out here.
He's the toughest fitness guy out here.